Hello there.
Today
we are excited to announce the upcoming Desert Palm Press anthology called Tales from Under the Desert Palm, which will be released on December 27th, so next month, and all proceeds will go to charity. To discuss what the anthology includes, we have here today 9 authors who contributed to the short story anthology. Each story acts as a prequel or a post-quel to at least one story they previously published through Desert Palm Press, meaning the story takes place either before or after the published book and provides us with a look into some of our favorite characters. So let me introduce you to each author. Ray Magnan. There's Ray. Tony Draper.
Hello.
Antonelle. Kelly Doherty. Nat Burns.
Hello, everyone.
Shay Cassidy. Janice Mills.
Hi.
Ellen Hoyle. Ellen, wave. And I'm Jazzy Mitchell. So the 9 of us are here today. I'm glad that you were all able to make it here today to discuss our short stories. Thank you and welcome. So let's talk about our stories then. The first few questions I have for each one of us is, what's the name of your short story? What book or books did you write it about? And is it a prequel or a postquel? So let's start off with Ray.
I'm in the hot seat, I see. Exams just happened. And it is a prequel to the book Lucky 7 and Lucky 8. And it is about 2 of the supporting characters, Cherry and Rami, and their very first meeting before they became a couple.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, let's go to Tony then. Tony, what's the name of your short story? What book or books did it come from? And is it a prequel or a postquel?
Hi there. The title of my short story is Miracles on 34th Street. And it's kind of a post-quel that evolved from my Back in the Saddle, or I'm sorry, Cinco de Mayo, in that it starts with the characters of Bobby and Paige.
Thank you. Okay, Anne, why don't you tell us what's going on with your short story?
First of all, thanks to everybody for being here today. My short story is called Family of Choice, and it actually features characters from all 4 of my novels, 2 novels in progress. So that means it's a prequel and a postquel.
Excellent, Anne. And Kelly Doherty, why don't you tell us what's the name of your short story? What book did you write it about? And is it a prequel or postquel?
Yeah. So my short story is called Dangers in the Daylight. It is set in the same world as my fantasy series, The Broken Chronicles, and it is mainly from Sunkissed Feathers and Severed Ties, and a secondary character named Char. And it is a post-quel.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure it's a post-quel. Yeah, it comes after the Sunkissed Feathers.
Excellent. Thank you. Natty, you're up next. Tell us what your short story, the name of it, what book it's from, and is it a prequel or a postquel?
Sure. Hello. Welcome, everyone. I had a little horror story. I only have 1 book with Desert Palm so far, but it's a horror serial killer type book. And so the short story I wrote related to this book is called And to the Child, and it's a prequel. So it's what happened to the bad guys before the book begins.
Ooh, thank you, Natty.
Sure.
Shay, you're next. Tell us the name of your short story, what book you wrote it from, and is it a prequel or a postquel?
might not be what works best.
So it's Warrior Class Claiming the Stars.
Mhm.
It's from the Warrior Class series, and it's pretty much a post-quel where we kind of follow one of the secondary characters and just check in on how her life's doing.
Excellent. Thank you. Janice, you're next. Tell us the name of your short story. What book did you write it from? And is it a prequel or a postquel?
Okay, hi. My short story is called Out and About After My 50-Year Journey. And I have only one book so far published through Desert Palm Press, and that is coming out. It only took 50 years. Mine's a little different because it's a memoir. So
Right.
the character I had to choose, of course, was myself. And I started the book when I was 8 years old and went until age 70. So this is a post-quel that goes from the end of that book through what's going on now and what I hope my life is turning into.
Excellent. Thank you. Ellen, you're up next. Tell us the name of your short story. From what book did you write it? Is it a postquel or prequel?
The name of the story is Stand By Your Girl, and it's a postquel to Osprey Calling, and it's going to follow what happens to Riley towards the end of high school and what she's doing. So
Excellent.
that's where that takes place.
Cool. And mine is called Scheduling Happiness. It is a postquel from You Matter, and it takes place a few months after You Matter ends. Okay, so now we're going to have a couple of questions that we'll answer from several of the authors. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work out, but we're going to do our best. So my first question is, what was the reason for choosing this particular story to continue or start if it's a prequel? So does anyone want to take a stab at that? Just start talking. Okay, Anne, go ahead.
Well, a holiday gathering, mine said a holiday gathering, said as a holiday gathering. And I think that always makes it easy to bring together a bunch of people. And so the main characters, or most of the main characters from all of the books, the two that are out and the two that are in progress, play some part in the story.
Excellent. Thank you. Who else wants to tell us your reason for choosing this particular story to continue or to start if it's a prequel?
I'll take a shot. So,
Okay, go for it.
Cherry and Rami are two members of the heist crew from my book Lucky 7, which is a cyberpunk book where Ocean's 11 style, a bunch of futuristic criminals pull heists on evil corporations. So cyberpunk genre, two of the experts on the crew are Cherry, who's an explosives expert and an inventor. Everything she puts together seems to blow up in some fabulous way. And Rami, who is the cloak. They are non-binary and a master of disguise with makeup, an invisibility belt, and all sorts of other cool technology and talents. So this story, Rami has been kidnapped by a street gang before the crew forms and held for ransom. Cherry has been hired to do some work for this same gang and realizes they're holding a prisoner. And of course, she can't let an innocent person be held hostage. So
yeah,
it takes place before Lucky 7 and Lucky 8, which is where the whole crew together is pulling these cool virtual heists.
Awesome.
And Cherry and Rami were my standout characters from that book for sure, because I think people really related to Rami as a non-binary protagonist who is very gender fluid and presents as masculine and feminine and everything in between. And to have the damsel in distress in that kind of role be more of a them fatale, I think was a very appealing concept to me.
Great, thank you. Ellen, you going to answer this? Ellen?
Eventually, I think I'm going to bring everybody up on the screen to make my life easier. Hold on.
Okay.
There we go. So the story I picked was Riley, because one, she was a popular character, And I feel like she was the only one who hadn't had her story completely finished by the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was doing this short story, I actually decided that maybe I could turn it into something a little bit more. So we're going to see if that works.
Okay, cool. We have time for 2 more answers. Anyone else want to take a stab? Okay,
I will.
let's do Maddie and then we'll do Shay.
Okay. I wanted to see what started my protagonist, my bad guy, on her journey to evil. And so I also want to either write a prequel or a post-quel for The Rustle of Leaves, which is the horror book. And so it was an exercise to kind of see which way I wanted to go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've done everything I want to do as far as a prequel. So that let me know that this next novel that I do is going to be a postquel to The Rustle of Leaves. So that was kind of an exercise for me. And that's why I wrote it as a prequel to kind of test the waters.
Oh, excellent. All right, Shay.
So I kind of wrote this because I like happy endings, and Warrior Class, well, I guess it has a happy ending, ends kind of depressing. So I just wanted to check in with the characters and show readers, yeah, it wasn't as bad as it looked, and it turned out fine. So everybody's, okay.
Okay, that's good. I'm sure your readers will appreciate that. All right, so let's go on to the next question, which is why did you decide on that time frame? So when I talk about that, it's not really whether it's a post-quel or prequel so much as the actual time period that you place your characters into. So who wants to let us know your thoughts on that?
I'll go with that one.
Okay, good.
And I don't want to repeat this over and over, but it's very different because it's a memoir, and
right.
The character is me, and my secondary character was my mother. But this one, it's the time frame. When my book ended, I wanted it to go on with it. It started with being 8 years old and realizing that you were gay, and a lot of things that went on throughout my life that were very frightening, and a triple life that I had to live hiding because I was also an educator. And I want the post-quel to move on with not only after coming out and I married a woman and life is wonderful, but it's what else can happen and what good things can happen, not only for me, but it's going on. The character myself is going on trying to help young people to come out or to understand that you do have one, as far as we know, you've got one time in this life on this earth, and to live your own truth just makes life obviously so much better. But telling people that doesn't do it. When a kid or a young adult or at any age, when you're scared to death, if you're in your 60s and you want to get out of a marriage because you've fallen in love with someone your own gender, a straight marriage, it's still so frightening. And I want to try to impress upon people that there are so many of us out there that have had these same situations, and that life does get better. And it might not be the next day, the next week, or even the next year, but eventually, hopefully the next year, there's not only improvement in your life, but from within there is. And also to tell them how many people are out there to help. My biggest concern is young kids who are denied by their families, are told, well, I'm not paying for college anymore now that you're queer, something like that. And not only do they go into depression, but go into perhaps thoughts of suicide and even suicide. And so to take it beyond just my story was what's important to me, and hopefully what's important to the reader, because the whole reason for writing my memoir was to help others who are having trouble coming out, or to help the families of those who are coming out and the families are denying them or afraid or embarrassed or whatever that negative kind of emotion might be, to let them know that there's help out there and it really is okay.
So this post-quel that you wrote, it's continuing on from your memoir, obviously in present day then.
Correct.
About what's been happening. And And I would suppose, although I don't know, I haven't read your short story yet, although I'm looking forward to it. I'm supposing that you are referring to navigating throughout modern day while dealing with these types of issues.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you, Jan.
And in the meantime, I'm in the process of moving to Florida. And of all political arenas to be thrown into, it's just, I think if anybody needs help, they do.
Well, I'm sure if anyone can help, it will be you.
I will try.
There you go. That's what we want to have happen.
I'll become an activist more than ever now.
All right. Ray, did you want to add on? Looks like Ray's having a little trouble.
Yeah, we're having an audio issue with Ray again.
Okay, sorry, Ray. We're going to go on to someone else for now. Who else wants to talk about why they decided on the particular time frame that they have in their short story?
I'll go.
Okay, go for it.
The original title of my short story was Feliz Navidad. And that was following along Cinco de Mayo with numbers, holidays, what have you. But I quickly changed my mind, or it was changed for me. And like Anne, there was an event that brought characters from all of my books together, including one that I'm currently working on. I kind of left it the same time frame, the holiday times, although it starts in November and goes through Friendsgiving and then into Miracles on 34th Street, which it's a Christmas thing and it does involve miracles, but that's the reason for the time frame.
Okay, excellent. Who else wants to tell us a little bit about their time frame?
I'll go.
All right, let's do Ellen and then we'll do Anne.
So I picked the time frame that I did because in the book, Riley is a very young teenager, and she presents herself as very confident and very self-assured. And so I wanted to see what would happen when you moved her into that period of life when you're suddenly about to be thrust into the world at large and you're no longer as confident as you had been, and to see what that was.
Excellent. Yeah, I would think with the high schoolers, that's a very vulnerable time for them to be navigating all of this. All right, excellent. And let's try Anne. You were going to talk to us about this?
Yeah. Again, because it features several of the characters in different books, then there's a move afoot to get Sam, who's a new character that you wouldn't have met yet, is a neighbor. And so they're wanting to hook her up with Lee, who is in How Sweet the Sound as Val's cycling partner. And they're both cyclists. So they want to get them together. And I thought, that holiday time, you always read these holiday romances. And I thought that just seemed like the perfect time.
Excellent. Okay. We have time for one more person to answer this question. So anyone else want to talk to us about their time frame? Okay, I will. So the time frame that I wrote about was in the summer 2021, and then going forward. And it was really, it was started in 2019, actually, through 2021. And it was about how COVID affected my main characters from You Matter. And because at the end of You Matter, they had gotten engaged, but they had to keep rescheduling their marriage, their wedding, because of COVID and how that affects them. And the reason why is I know a lot of people feel like they don't want to write about COVID or its effects yet, but I felt that it was more realistic, and I knew that I wanted to write a book 2 to You Matter. And in order to do that, I needed to, in some way, talk about how it affected them so that I could write in present day. I didn't want to just skip over that whole pandemic thing. All right, thanks. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask all of you, which characters did you showcase, and then set up the short story as if we haven't read the book or books that it's attached to. So I'm just going to call on you. It'll be a little easier to do it that way. So again, which characters did you showcase? What's the story about? And set it up so that if someone hasn't read the books, it's attached to that they will understand it. Let's start off with Ellen.
Okay. So the characters I'm using is Riley from Osprey Calling, and I'm introducing a new character, Leah Gardner, who is a Shinnecock Indian, and which are around the North Fork of Long Island. So what we're going to do is this is their coming out story, and each one is expecting a certain reaction from their parents, because Riley's aunt is gay, and she has her partner Nicole, and so she thinks that everything's going to be hunky dory. And meanwhile, Leah comes from a very conservative area, and so she thinks that it's not going to go so well. So the story is going to look at how the reaction affects them, and whether they get the reactions they thought they were going to get.
Okay, great, thank you. Anne, why don't you fill us in on this?
Well, I've already said some of the things. The fact that it's a holiday gathering, and it's set on the campus, the nonprofit casino campus of Val and Nikki. And so all of their friends are getting together, and they're wanting to hook up, Lee and Sam. And so the story focuses on the tension about this, alleged hookup or whatever they want them to get together. So I think that's the main thing, is that of course it's a short story, so you can't really go into depth.
Right.
It's the tension around getting two people together.
Okay, great. And Janice, I know you told us a little bit about this before, but obviously it's showcasing you. But and you spoke a bit about how it's a post-quel, but can you give us a little more information on what the short story is about as far as that goes?
The short story, or
your short story?
Line it up with the
and line it up with your memoir, so that someone who hasn't read your memoir yet will understand the setting of it.
I think the short version of that would be the post-quel is more about confidence and empowerment, and trying to help people to get to that point when they might have started where I did, with living with secrets and lies and hiding the truth, and going through many, many years of that, and just what a waste of time, how much, loss of family and all of those things, and just how honesty within yourself just changes your life completely. And it's less often than people might think that people walk away from you. Usually it might take a little time, little being a week or a couple of years, but people come around. People who love you. And it's only fair that in your one life, you find you have the freedom to love whoever you want in whatever way you want. And that's my message, to be open and love who you love. I know that in my book, I talked about a triple life, and being a devoted daughter and a school teacher, this straight-laced school teacher during the day. And then I had left my hometown and moved to Washington, D.C., and I was a bartender at gay bars, and, having a blast during the disco era, with a little bit of dabbling in things that no school teacher was supposed to dabble in, and all the gay bars in D.C. were in horrible areas, dangerous areas. And there I was. And then, going to drag shows on Sunday nights and getting up and putting on my little business suit and going off to teach special education or math in high school or whatever I was teaching at the time, or being an assistant principal and then a high school principal. And it was just an outrageous, tearing within myself, the honesty just lying all the time. I never took boyfriends around, but when people said, "Who are you dating?" Inside I said, "None of your business. Don't ask me that. I don't want to tell you that. If I wanted
So
to tell
does that come up again in the short story, or is that?
It
I know that's
links it to, I sort of connect it back that that's not what I want people to do now. And I hope that there's a way that they can get beyond that. And now I have those answers, because with the huge LGBTQ movement and with the different pronouns and as Ray was talking about, and I think that's hilarious, the them fatale is just such a great term. But that's fantastic. But it's so much more open now. That I hope everybody could tap into that, but yet we know that's not true. And someone else talked about how difficult it is at high school. That's, junior high and high school are very tough years. And so it's moving from what I had to go through and trying to pull them up to, that's not the way it is anymore. And so if in your little world, let us try to help you.
So that's what the theme that you showcase through the short story then? It sounds like. Excellent. Yes. Thank you. Natty, why don't you let us know which characters did you showcase, and tell us what the short story is about, and set it up for those who haven't had the pleasure of reading your story.
Sure. Horror isn't everybody's cup of tea. I get that. So a lot may not have. But it's interestingly enough, none of the characters in the book are in the short story. And the reason for that is because in the book, I actually refer to, spoiler alert, there's a person called Mother who has a cult, and this cult kills old people. And that's what the book is about, actually, serial killing of this. So, and of course, there's a policeman who has to figure all this out. Anyway, in that book, I refer back to Mother's childhood and the things that happened. So what I had to do is I had to go back into the Russell Leaves and pick out those childhood events and take them into the short story and expound on them. So that's kind of what I did. And that's what you'll find when you read the short story. You'll see the correlation there. But so Mother would be my only consistent character between those two venues. Okay, so what the short story is about, and what the book is about, is a child is born with the gift of clairvoyance, and she is either demeaned for it by the church and by her mother, or that ability is exploited by her father in order to make money for the family. And she has a younger sister in the story who is also clairvoyant. And I won't tell you what happens to her, but anyway, you'll have to read the short story to find that out. But the child eventually learns how to use this ability to her own advantage, leading her into a life of murder to get her own way and to get where she wants to be, and also of controlling others. So it's kind of like hypnosis or mind control. She develops this because of her clairvoyant abilities. She knows what a person actually needs, and she can provide that to this person and then bring them aboard to do the things that she wants them to do. So that's essentially how those two things go hand in hand. Is the story is actually what happens when she's an adult, and the book is, and the short story is how she became that kind of adult who would do those kind of things, and the heinous things that she did as a child.
That sounds
continued. Yeah,
that sounds horrifying. Thank you.
It's what I do.
Good job. Okay. Shay, tell us about which characters you showcased and what the short story is about, and set it up as if we have not read the story or stories it's attached to.
Okay, so the story follows Adira. She's a general in the Warrior Class series. And the story is set 2 years after Warrior Class Blood Rain ended. And like I said, it ends kind of depressingly. She's basically killed one of the heirs to the Eastern Empire. It also she kind of has to deal with she's one of the people that the empire conquered, but also she's got a great position in the empire, so she's got to kind of tangle with that. It also allows us to check in on the main character from the warrior class series, Ashni, who out of everybody in the warrior class Blood Rain, she's like, she came off like the worst out of everybody, and it's just a way for us to see, yeah, she's still not quite together, but she's on the way because she's got support.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, I also get to explore one of the themes that I love is family is who you make, not your blood.
Mm-hmm.
So in the warrior class Blood Rain, I don't want to spoil it, but
don't spoil it for us.
Yes. So one of the things that made the book actually depressing is that so Adira's wife ends up she got raped. Ooh. And she ends up pregnant. But the culture that they're from, it's not something for her to be ashamed of. So I kind of wanted to showcase that she has the baby and they raise the baby as their son and there's no problems. And also that's why Adira killed the heir to the Eastern Empire.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Shay. Yeah. Tony, you're up next. Tell us which characters you showcased, what's the short story about, and set it up if someone hasn't read the story of stories it's connected to.
Okay, it started out with Paige and Bobby from My Cozy Mystery. Okay. And it starts out where they're opening a new restaurant. Bobby had a little cantina on the San Antonio Riverwalk, and she had always dreamed of having a restaurant. So that's coming to be. And so that's the occasion where everybody in the community kind of comes together to support Bobby with the grand opening of the restaurant. And so I have the girls from Back in the Saddle, the rodeo women all show up to support. And you're also introduced to a new character or a love couple that are going to appear in my work in progress if I ever finish it, which involves a Border Patrol agent and an immigration social worker. So they've kind of gone their separate ways and they're going to get back together. That's, I don't want to give too much away, but again, from the grand opening of the restaurant, there's a couple little events where they get together. One of them is a Friendsgiving type thing. And then Miracles on 34th Street, the title came from Hondo, Texas. There is a 34th Street there. And they each kind of get their own little miracle or things that they wanted that they didn't think they were ever going to get. They get on that street. So
excellent.
That's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's fun. Okay, thank you. Ray, why don't you tell us about which characters you showcased, what's the short story about, and set it up as if someone hasn't read the story or stories is connected to. Well, it looks like Ray's having some problems there again. Let's wait on Ray and let's go over to Kelly. And Kelly, why don't you tell us which showcased characters you have, the short story is about, and connected to the story or stories it's connected to.
Yeah. So it is set, my short story, Dangers in Daylight, is set in a continent called the Sunglade in my fantasy world. We haven't actually been there yet. It's known for being like a barren wasteland, unlivable, nobody ever survives kind of thing that's controlled by the worshippers of an evil sun goddess called Panaraya. And so the story actually focuses on Char, who is a secondary character of Sun-Kissed Feathers and Severed Ties, Misty's sister. if you've read that, you know her, who is a young woman who really wanted to be a scribe, but then her life took a drastic turn of events. I also bring in Danelle, who is their sibling brother, and then I also introduce Panaraya, who is the sun goddess that I talked about earlier. And so basically the story focuses on Char, who went through a very significant transformation in Misty's book, and how she's trying to figure out herself and who she is because of that transformation, and who's actually going through training to become part of a battalion of warriors called the Cinder Brigade. They're basically preparing for war, and it's Char's turn to have her final fight in order to figure out what kind of wave she's going to be in order to figure out where she's going to be in the battle that's coming up. And it's also about like sibling dynamics and how far you're going to go to save your loved ones, and that breaking point and making deals with the devil, or in this case, a sun goddess.
Oh, excellent. That sounds really interesting. Ray, you want to try again?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go for it.
Great. So, my story, Bombs Just Happen, is a prequel to Lucky 7, my cyberpunk virtual heist novel. There is a crew that runs those heists. Before that crew is formed, one Sherry Vidal is doing solo work on the mean streets of St. Louis, Kansas City, a big megacity that is formed in the Midwest. She hooks up with one of the street gangs in the area and is doing some work for them when she realizes there's a captive in their hideout that she wasn't aware of. And being an honorable gentlewoman, she decides to free this hostage before they can be ransomed back to their shitty homophobic and transphobic family. And it's about her efforts to secretly, under the noses of these gang members, cobble together some sort of escape for the them fatale in the locked room. It involves bombs, of course, and motorcycles, hover bikes. So if you want to find out where the action is, then you'll have to sit and find out.
Excellent. Thank you. And for me, I showcased Chrissy Kramer, who is, it was her point of view for You Matter. And it reflects what's happening in her life and those closest to her, which were Reggie Esposito, who's her fiance by the end of the book, You Matter, and her son Ben, and some of Reggie's extended family, her mother and sisters. So the story, when we left You Matter, Chrissy and Reggie became engaged. So I want to know what happened next. Did they get married? What's Ben doing now? He was a junior in high school when we ended You Matter. Did the pandemic alter their plans? Spoiler alert, it did. So Schedule and Happiness, it occurs a few months after You Matter ended, and they had just told their family at Easter that in 2019 when their wedding date was, but it turned out later they had to reschedule it because of the pandemic. Everything was closed. They rescheduled it again in 2020 and then again in 2021. And throughout that process, you have Ben, who ends up finishing his high school online, his graduation, doesn't have any senior events, attends college his first year at school during the pandemic. So we see some of the changes happening with that. And we see how Reggie and Chris and Chrissy needs to learn that even though they have to keep rescheduling the wedding, it doesn't mean anything negative. It's not the world or some higher God or something telling her that maybe they shouldn't get married. Maybe she doesn't deserve to have happiness. And so we go through that journey with them. Cool. So I have a couple of other questions I wanted to ask for all of you now that we've told everyone how awesome our short stories are. And so you can, again, just let me know if you want to answer any of them while we have a few minutes left. So the first question I have is, what drew you to those particular characters? Why did you want to revisit these characters or this particular book in the short story?
I'll go.
All right, go for it, Kelly.
So I really wanted to showcase Char because she was a really fun character to write, because I didn't actually get to write too much of her in Sunkissed Feathers, but she was so pivotal to Misty's story, but she just didn't get as much ink, so I wanted to continue her story as well. And she's also gone through a very significant transformation, and I wanted to showcase what it means to be who she is now and what it means for a certain sect of people in my fantasy world. And I wanted to bring in Janelle because it's a nice sibling dynamic. They don't get along, so that was really fun to write. And I really wanted to showcase Panaraya, the sun goddess. She's wrathful and evil and fierce and terrifying and just amazing. And I haven't been able to actually showcase her yet. She's so important, but I haven't actually been able to showcase her. And so I wanted to do that as well.
Oh, great. And Ray, you wanted to answer too, I think. Ray, did you want to answer? Yeah.
Sure. Well, the reason I picked is honestly, I did an interview for a podcast called All Star Lesbian Books, and the wonderful host Zara, who is fabulous. If you want to check out their podcast, you should look on Facebook. Anyway, she said that Terry and Ronnie were her favorite characters, and she hadn't seen lots of other characters like in media, and she wondered how they got together, and that percolated the idea I had to these two, because I know the group. How did they?
All right.
And I decided how to have explosions. I like to think I delivered on that front.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, I heard a bit of an echo there, but I think we understood what you're saying. Sorry about that. Who else? Anyone else want to? It's all right. Technical difficulties. We know how technology is nowadays. Anyone else want to talk to us about what drew them to these particular characters, though, before we move on?
This may stir up a nest of worms, but I think that what I was trying to portray in this is to show how parents can do a number on their kids, and how sometimes, what's it called, the fanatical religions can redirect a person's life, whether for good or for evil, and how that came about. So I think I was just kind of trying to portray that, and that's why I chose this prequel.
Those sounds like really interesting themes. Yeah, that sounds really cool. Okay, let me ask a different question. Have you written short stories before? Maybe fanfic or something else? Who has? Okay, Shay?
Yeah, I've written a few. I do fanfics, and also one of my books from way back, Bandages, is actually a collection of just short stories with two characters, Dane and Nicole. So I've done short stories before.
Right. And I know that you do fanfic, and Ray, I know you do fanfic also, right? And anyone else? Nat, what are you going to add on?
Well, back in the 80s, I was part of a thing called the Small Press Writers and Artists Organization. And we wrote short stories for small press magazines all across the country and Europe. And so I've had more than 50 short stories published, but I have put them into an anthology, and that'll be coming out in March. It's called Stepping Through. And these stories are very Twilight Zone-y with a few little horror things thrown in. So it's real different from what I have done for like other publishers. So anyway, I hope you guys will check it out.
Thank you, Nat. Anyone else write short stories or fanfic here? I do. I write fanfic. I've been writing fanfic for 20 years and, gone through. I mean, I still love it. I still write. I just wrote a Devil Wears Prada fanfic last month. And now my big thing is Hacks, of course. Hacks is awesome. So I've been seeing a lot of writers come out into that fandom. But I also like writing for Harry Potter, Supergirl, really just, I love having pre-made environments and, worlds that I can play in, as well as really strong characters. That's why I like Devil Wears Prada and Hacks, because you have some very strong female characters that you can explore.
Okay.
So let me ask you all, did you find it hard to be limited by that word count? Yes, no,
No.
maybe.
No.
Yes,
No.
extremely.
Looks like a mixed bag here. I can tell you what happened to me. I was told it was 5,000 words. So I wrote a draft for 5,000 words. And then I was told after I finished my draft that it was 6,000 to 8,000 words. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to expand on a short story, but it's much harder than pulling things out of it when you have too many words. So that was a bit of a challenge for me. But the good thing is it gave me an opportunity to really delve into Chrissy's psyche and explore what she's feeling and why she's feeling those things. But I can tell you it was hard. I think it's harder to add on than to pull out. Yeah.
I really liked having the word count. It gave me something to like shoot for. It gave me something to shoot for. I've actually written flash fiction stories that were under 300 words. So having 5,000 was really great for me. But I found it really, I overwrote. And so I had to like pare down. And it really forced me to like look at every scene and every paragraph and every line to really see if it added anything to the story. And that was just really lovely for me. I felt like it honed my writing style a lot, so I appreciated it.
Yeah.
I found it difficult because I couldn't figure out, because I've only written novel length stuff. So it was like, how do you take the structure of a novel and fit it into 7,000 words? That was hard.
It's almost like when you write poetry, right? Every word counts in a short story. There's only so many words that you can put in there. So you can't be superfluous at all. It's really, if it isn't directly connected to your theme or the plot, it has to go. Doesn't matter how wonderful the prose is. You can't have it. So let me ask you, is it possible that you would write a longer story to continue this short story? Anyone? Go ahead. Right.
Well, definitely not. Because it's directly into Lucky 7, but there will be a Lucky 9 to finish the trilogy. And I just wanted to get people hyped for that. I know people have been asking about it. Yes, there will be a third book.
Excellent. So we can look forward to Lucky 9. That's wonderful. Anyone else thinking that they might add on now that you've written this short story?
I've already started on mine.
You did? So that's a yes for Ellen. And yes?
Yeah, I mean, it really does serve as a prequel to 2 different novels.
Oh,
so, I don't want to give anything away, but I'll just say that it paves the long and winding mountains to coast road to a happy ever after.
And we love those happy ever afters.
That's right.
Anyone else?
I would say for me, no, but mostly because I left it off at a very intentional spot in the short story, and Char actually will make an appearance in the 5th book, so her story is not completely done because I wanted to weave it in another spot. But no, I don't want to continue that story anymore because I'll continue it in my longer work. And the short story is good as is.
All right. Anyone else?
I'll go.
Oh, Janice, go first, and then we'll listen to Natty.
Yeah.
To continue this story, definitely not. I feel like I've talked enough about myself, and the memoir sort of threw everything up on the paper, and then the short story I tried to go on. But what it made me think was there are so many stories that so many people have. Everybody has a coming out story. Some of them are marvelous and some of them are tragic. And I thought it might be really interesting to just interview a lot of people. And Ray, you mentioned Florida, like, come down there and meet people and, compile some stories for either young folks or anyone to read. I mean, if you need these different points of view, read this and see if any of this helps you. And if so, great. Maybe get a little, one in a different publication. They have a lot of small newspapers down there. There are a lot of gay publications down there that would put a very short story in. So I think I'll try that next.
That sounds great. And Natty?
I have to bring Mother back. I mean, she is so evil and so cunning and so manipulative that she has to come back. I may change the sheriff to somebody else, or I probably will put it in a different setting. because I really like the sheriff. I hate to do away with her. But anyway, I'll create somebody new that I really like. And this will be a post-quel to the Rustle of Leaves.
All
I'm
right, so
excited
we get to see Mother return.
Yeah,
That's
in her
great.
evil guys.
In her evil ways. And I'm writing book 2 of You Matter. So this short story acts as a bridge between book 1 and book 2 so that we're up to date on what's been happening in Chrissy's world and Reggie's world and everything else. So, well, I'm sad to say that we've run out of time, but I'd like to thank you all for being here today. And I know I'm super excited to get a copy of this anthology once it becomes available on December 27th. But for you and everyone who's watching, don't wait until then to check out these authors. You can go over to desertpalmpress.com and look at all the works and hopefully purchase some if you haven't had a chance to read them yet. And don't forget, if you go over to desertpalmpress.com, you can use the code 10DPP to get 10% off of all your ebooks. So I hope you'll do that. And again, thank you, authors, for being here today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sure thing.